The morning air around Westridge Middle School felt cool and bright. Students moved across the courtyard with backpacks bouncing and voices mixing into a steady hum. Malik walked among them, quiet and steady, his hands tucked into the sleeves of his hoodie. He kept a pair of old headphones in his pocket and tapped a gentle rhythm against his leg as he walked. Music lived in his head most of the day, little patterns, warm chords, a melody his grandmother used to hum while she cooked. He did not talk much about it at school. He liked keeping it close, like a small light he could carry anywhere. Inside, lockers banged shut. Flyers on a bulletin board showed the school play, the debate team, and a bright poster of famous composers, Bach, Mozart, Beethoven, Chopin. The names lined up like a rule book. Malik glanced at the poster and then down at his shoes. He liked these composers, he really did. But he also loved the sounds he heard at church with his mom, and the rhythms his neighbor played on an old record player. In his mind, all of it could live together. He slid into his homeroom just before the bell. Miss Hartley stood at the front with a stack of sheet music. She wore a fitted blazer and a tight smile. Everything about her always seemed exact, the neat bun, the chalk lines straight across the board, the way she held the marker like a conductor's baton. She often spoke about proper culture and real music, and when she said those words, some students sat up a little taller, as if they had passed a secret test. Others, like Malik, learned to keep quiet. He had heard her say once, "Popular music doesn't train the ear. It trains impatience." He wasn't sure what she would think if she heard the soft, careful harmonies he created at home. Layla, his best friend, waved from a desk near the front. Malik took a seat beside her. Layla wrote a note on a sticky pad and slid it across, "You look tired. Long night." He smiled and wrote back, "Math project." He didn't mention that he had stayed up after the project, sitting at his grandmother's old upright piano, pressing one key after another, listening to the way low notes held a room and high notes felt like fresh air. That piano was not perfect, several key tops were chipped, and the bench had a small wobble, but it was warm and honest, like his grandmother's voice. The bell rang. Miss Hartley tapped the board. "Today," she said in a bright voice, "we discuss classical foundations. We will learn what makes music serious and worthy." Her eyes moved across the room, pausing on Malik for a breath, then sliding away. "Many of you think you know music because you listen to it on your phones. But to understand structure, you must hear it live, under your fingers. The piano is the best teacher." She lifted the lid of the old school piano. Dust puffed into the air. The bench squeaked when she pushed it. "First, a demonstration," she said. "Let's have a student show us what he believes music is." Her smile stayed thin. "Malik, come up." The room shifted. Some heads turned. A boy at the back let out a short laugh and then coughed to hide it. Layla's eyes widened, she looked at Malik with a tiny shake of her head. "Are you okay?" Malik's heart thumped in his chest. He had never told the class he played. He had never played in this room. He kept his music private because it felt safer that way. But now every eye was on him. He stood slowly and walked to the front. Each step felt longer than it was. He told himself to breathe. He told himself to keep his shoulders level. He heard his grandmother in his memory, "When you play, do not try to win. Tell the truth." He liked those words because they made music feel like something honest, not a contest. He reached the piano and ran a finger over the dust. The keys were slightly yellow with time. He pressed down on one and heard a soft, dull tone. It needed tuning. He could tell by the way the note fell flat at the end, like a sigh. Miss Hartley folded her arms. "As I said," she told the class, "we will see what he thinks music is." The way she said it made it sound like he did not belong in this lesson, like she expected something small and messy. Malik looked at the bench and then at his hands. He had not warmed up. His fingers felt dry. This piano would not forgive any heavy touch, it needed care. Also, he did not want to play as a joke for the room. He did not want to be used as a point in a lecture. Music was not a trick to him. It was years of quiet afternoons, careful practice, and his grandmother's soft voice that said, again, but lighter. Again, but listen for the breath between chords. He sat on the bench. The wood creaked. He set his fingers on the keys and did not press down yet. The room whispered behind him, chair legs moved, someone's pencil rolled and hit the floor. He thought of the tiny apartment he shared with his mom. He thought of the upright tucked in the corner, the stack of worn sheet music, the way the afternoon sun made lines on the keys. He remembered how his grandmother taught him to listen to silence first. Hear the room, she used to say. Fill only what needs to be filled. Go ahead, Miss Hartley said. Just a little something. Don't waste our time. The words stung. Malik felt heat in his face. He was here to learn, like everyone else. He was not wasting anyone's time. He was not a lesson to be handled. He pressed one note, then lifted his finger. The sound was thin. He pressed a second note, then a third, testing the feel under his hands. But he knew playing now, without preparation, on this piano, under this tone, would not be honest. It would be a performance for someone else's story. He wanted his music to be clear and respectful. He wanted to choose his piece and his start. He wanted to tell the truth. He turned his head slightly and spoke in a calm voice that surprised even him. I can play, he said, but I would like to prepare first. I didn't warm up, and the bench is loose. If I can come tomorrow, I will show my best. A small silence followed. He thought for a second he might have said the wrong thing, that he should have just placed his hands down and tried. A boy near the window snorted. He's scared, the boy whispered. Another student murmured, leave him alone. Layla sat straight with her chin up, a small signal of support that Malik felt like a warm hand on his back. Miss Hartley tilted her head. This is a simple request, she said, her voice cool. A true musician does not need perfection to show basic skill. She tapped the frame of the piano with her fingernail. But if you want to postpone, perhaps we will find someone who is ready. Do we have a volunteer who listens to proper music at home? Her eyes drifted to another student who often bragged about lessons. That student shook his head, suddenly shy. No one raised a hand. Malik kept his breathing even. He did not argue. He folded his hands and waited. He knew something about himself now. He cared about the music enough to protect it, even if that meant some kids would tease him. He stood, pushed the bench in carefully, and stepped back. Very well, Miss Hartley said, making a small note on her clipboard. We will move on. Her smile returned for the board, not for him. She began to speak about structure, about form and theme, about a melody that returns like a friend after a long trip. She played a few phrases on the piano herself, clean and sharp. The class copied terms into their notebooks. Malik wrote the words, too, but his mind floated. He thought of the piece his grandmother loved, a simple melody with room for breath. He thought of how he could make it his own without bending it out of shape. He thought of a gentle rhythm in the left hand that felt like walking home at sunset. When the bell rang, desks scraped, and the room loosened like a held breath let go. Students stood, some chatting, some quiet. A boy from the back passed Malik and said under his breath, "Good dodge." Malik did not answer. Another student touched his shoulder and said softly, "I hope you play tomorrow." He nodded. Layla waited by the door. "You okay?" she asked as they stepped into the hallway flow. "I think so," he said. He chose his words with care. "I want to play right. Not rushed. I want it to sound like me." "It will," she said. "Sit in the front row tomorrow." I'll be there. She grinned and then narrowed her eyes. And if anyone laughs, I'll clap first. He smiled. Thank you. They walked together past the trophy case and the multipurpose room where the band practiced after school. A scale drifted through the glass and out into the hall, simple and careful. Malik paused. He could already feel the keys under his hands, the light beginning, the small spark in his chest that meant he had something to say. At lunch, the talk at his table moved over weekend plans and a science quiz. A message pinged in the class group chat. Someone wrote, "Did you see homeroom? That was weird." Another wrote, "He didn't want to play because he can't." Someone else replied, "He wants to prepare. What's wrong with that?" A few more comments followed, some sharp, some kind. Malik put his phone away. He knew what he wanted to do. He wanted to show, not argue. The afternoon classes passed in a soft blur. He answered a question in math, wrote a paragraph in language arts, and helped a classmate in science carry a tray of materials. He kept hearing that small line his grandmother said on hard days, "Tell the truth." The truth, to him, was not a fight. It was clear sound. It was a steady left hand and a singing right hand. It was the choice to begin on his own terms, with care. After the final bell, he walked home along a street lined with small trees. His backpack felt heavier than usual, full of books and the weight of what tomorrow asked from him. But as he turned the last corner and saw his building, he felt calm. He knew the piano would be waiting in the living room, its wooden sides showing tiny scratches from years of moves, its keys ready for him. He would sit. He would warm up. He would try the melody slow, then slower, until it was honest. He climbed the stairs and unlocked the door. The apartment smelled like soap and a hint of the tea his mom liked. The upright waited against the wall with a small lamp on top. He set his backpack down and lifted the fall board. The white and black keys looked back like a row of quiet faces. He touched the wood and whispered, not to anyone in particular, "Tomorrow." He remembered the way the class had fallen still for a second when he pressed those first test notes, even on the dusty school piano. He pictured the room again, the light on the board, Layla's steady gaze, the boy's quick laugh, Miss Hartley's cool voice. He did not want to carry anger. He wanted to carry sound. He pulled a small scrap of paper from a drawer and a pen from his pocket. He wrote 4 words in neat, careful letters, "Tell the truth." He folded the note and slid it into his hoodie pocket so he would have it with him in the morning. For a moment he just sat on the bench, listening. The apartment was quiet. A car passed outside. Somewhere down the hall, a TV played softly. He placed his fingers on the keys and pressed a gentle chord, the kind that filled the room without shouting. It sounded like a beginning. He let it fade and then pressed the next chord, and the next, feeling the weight of his fingers, listening to the space between the notes. He did not rush. He did not try to prove anything. He just listened and told the truth in the only way he knew how, one careful note at a time, building toward tomorrow. Malik let the front door close softly behind him and set his backpack by the couch. The apartment felt calm, like a quiet lake. Sunlight from the late afternoon sat in a warm square on the floor. He washed his hands, dried them on a towel, and walked to the upright piano in the corner. The wood had a few small scratches that told stories of moves and years, and the keys looked like friendly faces waiting for him. He lifted the fallboard and took a gentle breath. He was not in a hurry. He would make a plan and prepare with care. He began with slow finger exercises, one hand at a time, then both together. He liked the feeling of each finger waking up. He listened to the sound of the hammers inside the piano and the way the notes met the air. The room answered with a soft echo. He checked his posture, lowered his shoulders, and let his wrists float. He remembered his grandmother's voice, loose hands, steady heart. He counted quietly, 1 and 2 and, until the rhythm felt like a walk, easy and sure. Next, he chose the melody he wanted to share the next day. It was a small, graceful tune his grandmother used to hum while cooking. In its original form, it sounded like clear water. He played it once as it was, in simple notes, then again a little slower, listening to the shape of each phrase. He learned to see a melody like a line drawn in the air. It started, rose, turned, and came home. He did not want to push it. He wanted to guide it. He tried adding something that felt like him. With his left hand he placed gentle chords, soft and warm, the kind he heard at church on Sunday mornings. He let the left hand breathe between the right hand phrases, so the melody had room to shine. Then he gave the left hand a small swing, not too much, just enough to make the music walk a little lighter. He kept it honest and clean. He did not want to show off, he wanted to say something true. A faint knock sounded on the door frame. It was Mr. Rivera from next door, a retired piano tuner who always smiled with his eyes. He wore a light jacket and held a small, well-used toolkit. "I heard a good melody through the wall," he said kindly. "Mind if I listen?" Malik nodded and kept playing. When he finished the phrase, Mr. Rivera stepped in and tapped the pedals with his shoe, then sat to test a few keys with a careful ear. "The action is fine," he said, "but this right pedal squeaks a little. I can put a drop of oil. Also, a few pins are a touch loose. Nothing big." He looked at Malik. "Do you have a performance?" "In class," Malik said. "Tomorrow." "Ah," Mr. Rivera said, smiling. "Then tonight is about balance. Not speed. Not volume. Balance." He tightened a couple of strings until the faint wobble in one key steadied into clear tone. "Play it again," he said, "but start softer than you think. Make the room lean in to hear you. Then, let it grow. Not all at once. Little by little." Malik tried it. He began with a whisper of sound. The whole room felt like it leaned closer. He added the left-hand chords like a soft path under his feet. The melody rose, and the swing in his left hand found a gentle place. He shaped the phrase to a small peak, then let it settle. Mr. Rivera nodded. "Good. You are telling a story? People will listen when you tell it true." After he left, Malik's phone buzzed. It was a message from Layla. "I'll sit in the front row tomorrow," she wrote. "Start quiet, then build. I will clap first if they are slow." Her next text added a smile. "You've got this." Malik typed back, "Thank you. I'm going to make it honest." He put the phone face down so he could focus. He drew a very simple plan on a small piece of paper. Start soft, 2 bars. Original tune, 8 bars. My chords, 8 bars. Small lift, 4 bars. Return home, 4 bars. Calm ending. He set the paper on the music stand and ran through the plan, slow and even. When a transition felt rough, he stopped and worked on just those 2 measures until they felt like one smooth thought. He told himself, no rush. Fix the small parts, and the big part will fix itself. A new message popped up in the class group chat, where many students talked about homework and jokes. "Did you see in homeroom?" someone wrote. "Teacher put him on the spot." Another wrote, "He just didn't want to play." A third added, "She said he would waste time." Malik read the words and felt a small knot in his chest. Then a quiet reply appeared from an unknown number. That was not fair. He asked to prepare. We should respect that. Another message followed, I'm telling the counselor. Malik put the phone away again. He could not control all the opinions in a chat, but he could control the sound under his fingers. He breathed out and placed his hands back on the keys. The front door opened. His mom came in with her work bag and a tired smile. Hey, you, she said, kissing his hair. I heard the music from the hallway. It sounded calm. She looked at his face and then at the piano. I got your text about what happened. Do you want me to call the school? Malik shook his head gently. I want to handle it by playing well, he said. I want to show them that I care about the music. I want to do it the right way. His mom set her bag down and sat in the chair by the window, the one with the cushion his grandmother had sewn years ago. Then I'll be your audience for practice, she said. What are you telling me with this piece? That I can listen, he said after a pause. That I can take something old and give it love and care. That I respect what came before, and also I am here. She smiled, eyes warm. That is a beautiful answer. Play it for me. He did. He played it from the gentle start to the calm end, and he held the last note until the air felt settled. When he finished, his mom's eyes shone a little. Your grandmother would be proud, she said. She always said music is a way to say, I see you. I see you, Malik. They ate a simple dinner and shared stories from the day. When the dishes were washed and set to dry, Malik returned to the piano for another round. He wanted the transitions to be natural, like a voice that does not stumble. He recorded himself on his phone, listened back, and took a few notes. Bar 6 left hand too loud, bar 10 rushed, and breathe more. He tried again. He smiled a little when the rough spots began to smooth out. It felt like sanding a piece of wood until it was soft to the touch. There was another knock. Mr. Rivera was back with a little bottle of oil and a small wrench. Sorry to bother, he said, but I found the right tool for that wobble in your bench. He turned the bench over, tightened 2 bolts, and flipped it back. Now it won't creak when you shift your weight. That can distract you. He added a tiny drop of oil to the right pedal and pressed it gently. There. Try it. Malik tried the pedal. The small squeak was gone. The sustain felt clean and even. Thank you, he said. Tomorrow, when you sit, Mr. Rivera said, tapping the bench, remember this, every phrase is a breath. Breathe in before the phrase. Then breathe out with the music. If you forget to breathe, your hands will forget to be kind. He smiled again and went home, leaving the air warmer than before. Malik ran the piece again and again. He decided on a clear shape, begin so softly that people lean in, grow like a sunrise, let a small light shine in the middle, return to the gentle beginning, end with peace. He practiced how to place his fingers for the softest start. He paid attention to his balance on the bench so his arms felt weightless. He counted. He listened. He found a way to tuck his own little harmony inside the original line, like a thank you letter inside an envelope. When his hands grew tired, he took a break and packed his bag for the morning, math book, language arts folder, water bottle, a small cloth to wipe dust from the school piano keys, and the note that said, "Tell the truth." He put the note in an easy-to-reach pocket so he could touch it before he walked to the front of the room. He laid out a clean shirt on a chair and polished the toes of his shoes with a cloth until they shone a bit. Before bed, he sat again at the piano for one last, quiet run. He turned off the big light and turned on the small lamp, so the keys glowed like a path in the dark. He played the opening slower than before, letting each note settle. He felt steady. His hands knew where to go. His heart beat calmly. He finished with a soft chord and kept still until the sound melted into the air. He whispered, "Thank you," to the empty room, not to the piano, exactly, and not to himself, but to the moment that allowed him to be clear. He brushed his teeth, set his alarm, and slipped into bed. For a few minutes he stared at the ceiling and watched shadows shift as cars passed outside. He did not replay the group chat in his head. He did not replay the teacher's tone. He replayed the gentle start, the honest center, and the peaceful end. He pictured the old school piano and the dust he would wipe away. He pictured Layla in the front row, her hands ready to clap. He pictured the principal walking by and hearing even a little of the truth he would try to say. Early morning light woke him before the alarm. He stretched, pulled on his clean shirt, and ate toast with tea. His mom squeezed his shoulder. "Be kind to yourself," she said. "That is the secret." He nodded and smiled. He went to the piano one last time. He did not play the whole piece. He only played the first two measures and then stopped, on purpose, so he would be hungry to play more at school. He closed the lid gently, slid the bench in, and picked up his backpack. At the door he patted his hoodie pocket until he felt the small folded paper. The words were there, waiting. On the way to school, the air felt fresh. The trees along the sidewalk moved a little in the breeze. He counted his steps for a few blocks, then stopped counting and just walked. He did not try to predict how anyone would react. He trusted his plan. He trusted his hands. He trusted the hours he had put in when no one watched. He trusted the sound that felt like his heart was speaking without confusion. When the school building came into view, he took one more breath and let it out slowly. He would not raise his voice. He would not drop his head. He would sit on the bench, clear the dust, and begin softly. He would lift the room with care, and he would bring it home with peace. He would tell the truth. That was enough. The morning moved fast until homeroom. Malik felt each minute like a careful step. He checked his pocket twice to feel the small folded note. He carried his cloth for the keys. He kept his plan in his head like a simple map: start soft, let it grow, show a small light in the middle, come home, end with peace. When the bell rang for homeroom and the class settled, he took a slow breath and let it out. He did not know what anyone would say. He only knew what he would do. Students found their seats. The board still showed yesterday's terms: theme, variation, cadence. Miss Hartley stood at the front, her blazer pressed and neat, a marker in her hand. She smiled at the room, then looked at Malik for half a second. "Today," she said, "we continue with structure and live demonstration." Her tone was bright and even, like a light that did not change. Yesterday, a student wished to prepare. Today, he will share a short piece so we can speak about form. She lifted the lid of the school piano. A soft cloud of dust rose and settled again. Layla slid into the front row and gave Malik a small nod. It said everything: "I am here." The room grew quiet in a way that felt thin, like paper that could tear. A chair creaked. A pencil tapped twice and stopped. Outside in the hallway, a cart rolled by and then faded away. Malik stood and walked to the front. Each step felt steady, like he was walking on his own path and not being pushed. He set the small cloth on the top edge of the piano, then looked at Miss Hartley. "May I wipe the keys?" he asked softly. She tilted her head, as if deciding whether to allow even this. "If you must," she said, and stepped to the side. He took his time, not slow to make a point, but careful to make a space. He wiped a thin film of dust from the white and black keys, one end to the other. The cloth came away gray. He folded it in half and set it aside. He checked the bench and felt the wobble. He knelt and tightened the side knob with his fingers. It still moved. He looked toward the door and saw the custodian pass with his cart. The custodian paused, pushed the bench leg with a finger, and gave Malik a small thumbs up. Malik smiled back and sat. He placed his feet where he wanted them. He straightened his back and let his shoulders drop. He rubbed his thumbs against his fingertips to warm them. He looked down and saw the worn edges of the key tops, the little chips that showed years of use. He let his eyes close for one breath. In that breath he pictured the tiny apartment, the soft lamp, the sound that filled the room last night. He touched the folded note in his pocket and felt the words without opening it. "Tell the truth." "Go on," Miss Hartley said. "A brief selection, please." Malik set his hands above the keys and did not press down yet. He listened to the room. It was not silent. It was alive with small sounds, the breath of 30 students, a shoe on the floor, a bird calling outside. He placed his right hand gently and pressed the first note so softly that someone in the back might have missed it. He did not push the sound. He invited it. The note rose like a small light and then rested. He played the second note, then the third, shaping the melody with care. It was the tune his grandmother loved, simple and honest. He let the line move forward like a sentence said in a calm voice. The class felt it. A whisper stopped. A foot that had been bouncing went still. The sound did not rush. It took its time to arrive. Then he brought in his left hand with a soft chord, warm and low, the kind of sound that supports without taking the light. He kept it small. He waited between phrases so the melody could breathe. He added a gentle swing to the left hand, just a little, enough to make the music walk with a soft ease. The swing was not a show. It was a step, like moving down a sidewalk with the sun on your face. Malik grew the sound by inches, not leaps. He let the melody climb and then look around. His right hand sang clear and simple, his left hand made a path under it. The bench did not creak now. His wrists floated. He remembered to breathe before each phrase, like Mr. Rivera had said. When he breathed, his hands were kind. The notes shaped themselves into curves that made sense. Even students who did not listen to piano much felt something settle inside them, like dust in a beam of light. The hallway door opened a little. The principal, Miss Nguyen, stepped in to pass by, then paused without meaning to. She stood near the door and listened. The custodian stopped his cart again and leaned on the handle, smiling to himself. A teacher from next door held her roll sheet and stayed in the doorway for a moment. No one spoke. The sound was small, but it carried truth, and truth has a way of asking for stillness. Malik reached the small lift in the middle, the part he had planned last night. He did not turn the piece into something else. He kept the original melody, but he tucked a bright passage inside it, like sunlight through a thin curtain. He let his right hand dance for a breath, clean, light, hopeful, and then he returned to the calm line. This was the moment he had worried about, the moment that could become a show if he pushed. He did not push. He offered it and moved on. His eyes stayed on the keys. He did not look up to see faces because he did not want to play to a face. He wanted to play to the room, to the place where sound and air meet. He moved into the return, the part that felt like walking back toward the door you came through. He softened his left hand and let the swing rest. He let the melody settle like evening light. He kept his shoulders loose. The piece was now on a gentle slope toward the end. He thought, just for a second, of his grandmother's voice. He could almost hear her say, "There it is." He placed the last phrase with care, each note like a simple step on a path he knew well. Then, with both hands, he made a calm cadence. He did not add any extra notes at the end. He did not hold on too long. He trusted silence as much as sound. He lifted his hands and let the final chord melt into the air. The room stayed still. It was not the stiff stillness of rules. It was the soft stillness of people who do not want to break a good thing. In that small pause, Malik felt a clear space open in his chest, like a window sliding up to let fresh air in. He did not smile or bow. He simply placed his hands in his lap and waited. Layla began to clap once, twice, 3 times strong and sure. The sound of her hands made a shape in the room, and others stepped into that shape. A student by the window stood as he clapped. Another followed. The back row joined. The sound rose, not like a cheer at a game, but like thanks. Some students looked surprised to find themselves on their feet. A few had their mouths a little open, as if they had forgotten to breathe and now remembered. Malik kept his eyes down for a second longer and then looked up. He saw faces he knew well and faces he barely knew, all sending him the same kind of look, respect. It did not feel like a flood. It felt like a warm cup placed in his hands. He nodded once, small and honest. Miss Hartley stood near the board with her arms folded. For a moment, she had not moved. Her neat posture wavered by a hair, then returned. She cleared her throat as the clapping calmed. "Thank you," she said. Her voice was even, but thinner than before, as if the sound had to find its way through a narrow place. "We will speak about elements of form now. Please take your seats." Malik stepped back from the bench and slid it in. He took the cloth and gave the keys one light pass, not because he had to, but because it felt like respect to the instrument and to the moment. He folded the cloth and slipped it into his pocket next to the note. "Tell the truth," it said. He had tried. The room had listened. He moved to his seat. As he passed the first row, a student whispered, "That was beautiful." Another said, "I didn't know you played like that." He nodded and kept moving, not because he did not care, but because he did. He wanted the feeling to settle. He wanted to hold the quiet inside a little longer. Miss Hartley tapped the board with the marker, but the sound was small after what had just happened. "Class," she said, "identify the theme." Where did it return? A few hands went up. She called on a student who answered well. "And cadence?" she asked. Another hand raised. The lesson moved on, but something in the room had shifted a few degrees, like a chair turned to face a window. At the door, the principal gave Malik a small nod, the kind that says more than a sentence. She made a brief note on a pad and stepped out again. The custodian pushed his cart away with a quiet hum, the wheels soft on the floor. A teacher in the hall smiled as he passed. The hallway took the music and turned it into a memory, the way halls do. In his seat, Malik kept his pencil in his hand, ready to write. He copied the terms on the board and added small notes in the margins: breathe before phrase, left hand kind, end with peace. He did not write these for a test. He wrote them for himself, the way you write a recipe you learned by heart but do not want to forget. A student in the back, the one who had laughed yesterday, raised his hand slowly. "The start," he said when called on, "was very soft. I think that made us listen more." He looked down after he spoke, as if the words had surprised him. "Observation noted," Miss Hartley said. She kept her voice even. "Dynamics can draw attention." She wrote dynamics on the board and underlined it twice. For the first time, she did not look at Malik when she said the word proper. In fact, she did not say proper at all. Layla turned a little in her chair and caught Malik's eye. She did not grin big. She only gave a small lift of her eyebrows, a look that said, "See." He felt his mouth pull into a quiet smile. He faced the board again and kept taking notes. The bell rang at last. Chairs moved. Bags zipped. In the gentle noise, a few students came by Malik's desk for a quick word. "That middle part was so clear," one said. "What is it called?" He thought a second and said, "A lift." The student nodded, as if that answered more than it did. Another asked, "Do you take lessons?" He said, "I practice at home." He did not mention the old bench, the small lamp, the neighbor's careful hands, the note in his pocket. Some things did not need to be said now. They had been heard. As students left, Miss Nguyen stepped into the doorway again. "Miss Hartley," she said in a calm voice, "could I see you for a moment?" Her eyes were kind when they passed over the class. The counselor, who had walked up quietly, motioned for Malik to join her by the hall. "Just for a moment," she said. "I wanted to say thank you for sharing your music." He stood and followed the counselor to the doorway. He felt steady as he walked. He did not feel bigger or smaller. He felt the same, only more clearly seen. In the hallway, a student from another class passed and asked, What was that music? The counselor smiled. Honest, she said. It was honest music. Malik touched the note in his pocket one more time, only with his fingers, not to look. He did not need to read the words. They were inside him now, bright and plain. He had started soft. He had let it grow. He had shown a small light and brought it home with peace. The room had given him stillness, and then it had given him hands. He had told the truth, and the truth had been enough. When the bell finished ringing and the last claps faded in his memory, Malik walked into the hallway with the counselor. The air was cool, and the floor smelled faintly of cleaner. His feet felt light, like he had stepped off a bus after a long ride. The counselor smiled and kept her voice soft. She said she appreciated his care and calm. She asked if he was okay. He nodded and said yes. He was not excited in a loud way, but he felt steady inside, like a small lamp that would not go out. The principal, Miss Nguyen, spoke with Miss Hartley in the classroom for a few minutes. Students passed by and looked in with curious eyes. No one heard the words, but they saw the principal's calm hands and the teacher's thoughtful face. When Miss Hartley stepped into the hall, she looked at Malik for a moment. There was a pause, like a page turning. She opened her mouth to say something, then closed it and nodded instead. The principal thanked Malik and said, "You showed great care for the music and for our community." The words settled gently, like leaves after a breeze. By lunch, the story had moved around school in small pieces. Some students repeated only the quiet start. Others repeated the bright middle. A few said, "I did not know he could do that." One student wrote a short note on lined paper, "Thank you for playing," in a kind way, and slid it to him at the cafeteria table. Layla read it and smiled. "People listened," she said. "You made them want to." Malik ate slowly. He did not want to chase the feeling. He wanted to breathe and let it visit. That afternoon, a message went out from the principal to families about celebrating student effort and respect in classrooms. It did not name anyone. It spoke about listening and kindness and how the arts help a school breathe. A few parents who had heard bits from their children wrote back to say thank you for the reminder. One parent asked gently if all students felt safe to share in music class. The principal replied that they were reviewing practices to make sure of it and that the school was always growing and learning. The tone was calm and hopeful. After last period, the counselor invited Malik to her office for a short check-in. The room had a plant on the windowsill and a little basket of stress balls. She offered him cocoa from a small machine. He took a cup and warmed his hands on it. She asked if he wanted any support if students had questions or if anyone teased him. He said he felt okay. "I don't want attention that feels sharp," he said. "I just want to keep it simple." She nodded. "We can do simple." She asked if he would be open to playing at the spring showcase next month. "Only if you want to," she said. "No pressure." Malik looked down at the steam from the cup. "If it is to celebrate the music, not to point at a person," he said slowly, "then yes." The counselor smiled. "That is exactly the plan." When he reached home, the apartment was quiet. He set down his backpack and sat at the upright. He did not play yet. He rested his hands on his knees and looked at the keys. He thought of the room that had gone still. He thought of his grandmother's phrase, "Tell the truth." He took out his small folded note and smoothed it on the music stand. He did not need to read it, but he liked seeing the clear letters. His mom came in 10 minutes later, her shoe soft on the floor. "I heard from the school," she said. "They're planning a showcase. They also said they are looking at how they teach the arts so every student feels welcome." She kissed the top of his head. "I'm proud of your patience." Across the hall, Mr. Rivera knocked and peeked in. "I heard a story about a room that went quiet," he said with a grin. "That is a good kind of quiet." He sat on the wobbly chair by the window, which was no longer wobbly at all since he had fixed it. If you are playing at a showcase, we can prepare in a clear way. We will choose which small rooms in your piece get a little more light, and which get a little more shade. He tapped his ear. Balance. Malik nodded. I want to keep the same piece, he said. But I want to add a tiny thank you in the middle. Just a few notes. Mr. Rivera's eyes warmed. A small thank you is often the largest thing, he said. That evening, while the pasta boiled and the kettle sang, Malik wrote out a short plan for the showcase on a piece of paper. Start soft, grow, small thank you, return, peaceful end. He practiced the first two parts, then left the piano before he felt tired. He wanted to save energy for tomorrow. He cleaned up dinner with his mom and told her the small details he remembered, the custodian's quiet thumbs up, the thin dust on the keys, the tiny moment of silence before the clapping began. She listened like the music, steady and kind. The next morning at school, the hallway felt a touch different, as if a window had been opened somewhere far away. People were normal late bells, messy lockers, jokes, but they were also a little softer around the edges. A student from another class said, "Good playing," while passing. Another said, "I liked the start." Malik thanked them and kept moving. He did not want to become a poster. He wanted to remain a person with a daily walk and a piano in the corner. Before homeroom, the principal met briefly with the music department and grade-level teachers. She talked about how to invite students to share without pressure. She shared a reminder about phrases that include and phrases that exclude. Our words create the room, she said. Let's build rooms with open doors. Teachers nodded and took notes. The meeting was short and respectful. No one was blamed. Everyone was asked to care a little more on purpose. In class, Miss Hartley began with the same terms on the board, but her tone was quieter. She did not use the phrase proper culture. She did not scan the room for examples the way she often did. Instead, she said, "Yesterday, we heard a piece that taught us about tone, shape, and dynamic." She looked at the class, not at Malik. "Today, we will talk about listening as a skill." She asked the students to pair up and share 30 seconds of any sound from their lives that felt meaningful: a phone recording of rain, a short voice note of a family member, a few bars of a favorite song. The point was not the source. The point was the listening. The room buzzed with soft sounds and small smiles. It felt like a gentle reset. At lunch, Layla and two other classmates asked if Malik would help them with a group project for social studies. "We want to show how art can change a community," one said. "Maybe we can make a short video about moments of quiet and respect in school." Malik said yes if they kept it simple and true. They planned to record footsteps in the hall, a door closing softly, pencils writing, and the hush right before the bell. Not everything had to be big to be strong. The small things carried a lot of weight. That afternoon, a letter went out to staff about a professional learning series on building welcoming classrooms. It listed topics like language that opens doors, student choice in sharing, and celebrating effort as much as skill. Teachers could join workshops over the next month. A new mentor teacher, Mr. Wallace, stopped by Miss Hartley's room after the last bell. He asked if she would like a partner to reflect on lessons. She agreed. They sat for 10 minutes with the day's plan and talked about what had gone well and what could grow. She wrote a short reflection to turn in: "I want to practice inviting, not assigning, when asking students to share. I want to pay attention to tone. I want to build trust." Malik heard about the workshops only later, in a gentle way. He was not part of the meetings or the emails. He simply felt the shift in class: more choices, more careful words, more chances to prepare. In music, students could sign up to share on a small calendar sheet. They could bring a piece from home or choose one from the school books. They could play 2 bars or 12. All of it counted. The room felt kinder. When he got home, Malik found a message from the community center. The leader had heard from the school counselor and wanted to invite him to their youth music program. It met twice a week after school and offered practice rooms, group sessions, and small performances for family and friends. The message said, "We like music that tells the truth." He read it twice. He loved that sentence. He showed his mom, and they smiled at each other in the soft kitchen light. "If the schedule works with homework," she said, "I think this is a yes." He wrote back a thank you and said he would visit next week. That night, he practiced only the middle of his piece, the small thank you he wanted to add for the showcase. He tried 3 versions, one with a gentle rise, one that stayed close to the original line, and one that was just a few bright notes like a smile. He recorded them and played them back with his mom. "Which one feels most honest?" he asked. She closed her eyes and listened. "The third," she said. "It feels like you're saying thank you without speaking." He agreed. On the third day, Miss Hartley asked to speak to Malik after class. Her voice was careful and plain. She said she was sorry for the way she called on him without notice. She said she was learning how to invite students with more care. She did not try to explain or excuse anything. She simply apologized and said she hoped to rebuild trust. Malik listened and nodded once. "Thank you," he said. He did not say more because he did not need to. He knew forgiveness is a path, not a switch. He felt okay standing at the start of that path. As the week went on, small good things kept happening. A classmate who had laughed on the first day came by and said, "I'm sorry I made fun of you. Your music made me quiet." In a good way. Malik shook his hand and said, "Thank you for telling me." The custodian passed him in the hall and gave a new thumbs up, then pointed to the music room and mimed wiping the keys. Malik grinned and held up his folded cloth. A teacher from a different grade stopped him to ask about the name of his piece. He said the name and added, "It reminds me to breathe." She smiled and said she would try that during grading. The showcase plan took shape. A simple flyer went up, "Spring Showcase, a celebration of student effort and care." No star names. No big claims. Just a date, a time, and a line that read, "Come listen." Malik's name was on the list with many others: choir, a small guitar duet, a short poem, a dance group, a beginner violin number that would last only 1 minute. The list made him happy. It looked like a real community, many voices, one stage, equal respect. On Friday afternoon, the principal announced a new idea over the intercom, a small monthly circle where students could share what made them feel welcome at school and what would help them feel safer. It would be called Student Voice. Sign UPS would open next week. "We want to learn with you," she said. The message was short, but it sounded like an open door. Students looked at one another and nodded in little ways. That evening, Malik practiced with the lamp on and the room quiet. He played the full piece once, then set his hands in his lap and listened to the last chord fade. He tried the tiny thank you one more time. It felt right, like the gentle light that falls across a table just before dinner. He closed the lid and stood. He felt calm and grateful, but also ordinary in the best way. He still had homework. He still had to pack his bag. He still had to rinse a cup in the sink and hang up his hoodie. Life kept its shape, and inside that shape, something soft and good had found a place to live. As he got ready for bed, his phone buzzed with a message from Layla, "Our social studies video want to record the sound of the empty gym? I think the echo would be cool." He typed back, "Yes. Early morning." She sent a thumbs up and a smile. He set his alarm and put the folded note back in his pocket for tomorrow, not because he needed it to remember, but because he liked the feeling of it there. It was a small promise to himself that he would keep telling the truth, one careful note at a time, wherever he found a quiet room and a listening ear. The day of the spring showcase arrived with clear skies and a soft breeze that moved the flags outside the school. The auditorium smelled like polished wood and new paper programs. Families filled the rows, talking in gentle voices. Small groups of students huddled backstage, fixing bows, tuning guitars, and shaking out nerves. Malik stood near the curtain with his mom and Layla at his side. He touched the folded note in his pocket and felt calm rise inside him like a steady tide. The grand piano on stage looked bright under the lights. A music stand with a small lamp sat nearby for the guitar duet that would play before him. He saw Mr. Rivera in the front section, his hands folded, his eyes warm as always. He saw the custodian wave a friendly hello near the sound booth and lift a thumb. The principal and the counselor stood by the side door, greeting families and students. Everything felt open and kind. The program began. The choir sang a round that made the room glow. A beginner violinist played a short tune, and the audience clapped with special care after each note. Two students read a poem they wrote together about listening. A dance group moved softly across the stage in matching sneakers and simple outfits. Malik watched from the side, feeling the stage like a wide, gentle river everyone would cross tonight in their own way. The host, a senior with an easy smile, kept the pace steady. When it was Malik's turn, the host said his name like a friend's name, not like a headline. Malik walked into the light. The applause was warm and made a soft arc over his head. He bowed once, simple and small, and sat at the piano. He adjusted the bench, placed his feet, and wiped the keys quickly with the cloth he had brought. The room settled, 1,000 small sounds folding into quiet. He let one breath come and go. He placed his hands and began. The first notes were almost whisper soft, like the edge of morning. People leaned forward. The melody rose, clear and honest. His left hand laid a gentle path under his right, a calm rhythm that felt like walking with someone you trust. He remembered to breathe before each phrase. He remembered Mr. Rivera's words about balance. He remembered his grandmother's voice, tell the truth. He did not think about impressing anyone. He thought about saying something kind and clear. The middle arrived. In that bright space he had shaped with care, he tucked the tiny thank you he wrote 2 nights ago. It was just a handful of notes, but they shone like a smile you give a friend across a crowded room. He offered it without hurry and then returned to the original line, letting it glide down to quiet again. He could feel the audience staying with him, not pulled by force, but choosing to stay because the sound was gentle and sure. He brought the piece home with peace, the way he had planned. The last chord rested in the air and faded like light at the end of the day. For one breath, the room made no sound. Then the applause began soft at first, then strong. People stood in small waves. Some students who had never watched a piano performance before found their hands clapping without being told. It was not loud like a sports game. It was warm, like the sound of many thank yous. Malik stood and gave a small bow. He felt steady and grateful, not larger than himself, just fully himself. He stepped away from the bench and walked to the side of the stage as the host thanked him and invited the next act. Backstage, Layla squeezed his shoulder. That tiny thank you, she whispered. I heard it. He smiled. I'm glad you did. His mom's eyes were bright. She hugged him quickly and let him breathe. After the last performance, the principal went on stage for closing words. She thanked the families, the performers, the staff, and the volunteers. She said the night was a celebration of effort, listening, and care. She did not name any single student as a star. She said, every careful step tonight made our school better. The room clapped in agreement. It felt like a promise the whole building would try to keep. In the soft shuffle after the show, Miss Hartley approached Malik near the stage door. Her posture was still neat, but her face was open. She held a small envelope. This is for you, she said. It's a written apology. I am working with a mentor and taking part in a training series. I am learning. I am sorry for how I called on you before. Thank you for teaching me, through your music, how to listen. Malik took the envelope and nodded. Thank you, he said. His words were simple and enough. Forgiveness, he knew, was a path. Tonight, they stood at the start of it with patience. The community center director introduced herself next. She wore a bright scarf and a friendly smile. We have a spot for you in our youth music program, she said. There is a scholarship available, and we would be honored to support you. We believe in music that tells the truth. Malik looked to his mom, who smiled and said yes with her eyes. He felt a light in his chest. He said he would come on Tuesday after school. The director pressed a small card into his hand. Bring your calm, she said. That is your strongest instrument. Over the next weeks, small good changes took root and grew. The student voice circle met for the first time in the library. About 20 students sat in a wide ring. They talked about how it feels when someone truly listens, and they shared gentle ideas for making classes feel safe. Someone suggested a sign-up sheet for sharing in music class. Another asked for more chances to prepare at home before being asked to show a skill in front of others. The counselor wrote down every idea and promised to bring them to the staff meeting. It felt like a slow door opening wider. In music class, a simple calendar went up by the piano. Students could write their names for a day they wanted to share 2 bars, a page, or even just a sound they liked. No one was pushed. Everyone was invited. The room felt lighter. Miss Hartley's voice softened. She tried new phrases. She asked, who wants to show us something you've been shaping, instead of prove you can? She made time for short warm ups when a student came to the front. She did not get everything right at once, but she kept trying, and the trying showed. Malik visited the community center on Tuesdays and Thursdays. He practiced in a small room with a clean upright and a mirror on the wall. He worked with a coach who asked him kind questions like, where does this phrase breathe, and what story are you telling here? He met a younger student who wanted to learn a simple song for her grandmother's birthday. He showed her how to play the opening with a soft hand. She smiled when it sounded sweet. His help felt like passing a warm cup to someone with cold hands. With Layla and 2 classmates, he finished the social studies video. They recorded the sound of the empty gym and the careful echo of footsteps. They captured the quiet before a bell, the hush in a classroom at reading time, the gentle thud of a book closing when a chapter ends. Over the images, they added a short line of text, a community is built in quiet moments. Their teacher showed the video to the class, and the room sat still the way it had during the music. It was a good kind of still. One afternoon, the custodian saw Malik in the hall and stopped him. He gestured to the music room with a proud little nod. Malik laughed and showed the folded cloth he kept bringing to wipe the keys. It had become a small habit now, not because the dust was heavy, but because it felt like respect. The custodian patted his cart and smiled big. Small habits, rightly chosen, can change a whole room. As spring moved toward summer, the showcase video went up on the school website along with videos of other acts. Families watched at home and sent short, kind emails to the school. Thank you for this night, I felt peaceful, the students' care shows. Nothing grand had happened, and yet everything had shifted a little. The school breathed easier. People began to choose their words with more care. Doors felt more open. Even the posters in the hall seemed to speak in a softer voice. On a quiet evening, Malik sat at his grandmother's upright with the window cracked open. He could hear a child down the block laughing and a bus sighing at a stop. He played the melody again, not for a stage, not for a grade, but for its own truth. He tucked the tiny thank you inside the middle and let it shine for a breath. His mom listened from the kitchen, stirring a pot and smiling to herself at the way the notes made the whole room feel kind. There was a knock. Mr. Rivera stood in the doorway with a small tuning hammer and a loaf of fresh bread wrapped in a towel. "For your mom," he said. "And for you, a small thought, when you teach someone, tune your words like you tune a string. Tight enough to carry, soft enough to sing." Malik thanked him and wrote it down later in his notebook. He liked collecting lines that helped him live. The school year wound down with field day, yearbook signing, and a last day that felt like a deep breath out. Malik helped pack the music room for summer cleaning. He wiped the keys one last time and slid the bench in. Miss Hartley thanked him for his help. She said she would see him in the fall and promised to keep building a room where every student felt welcome to share. He believed her, not because the room was perfect now, but because he had seen it change in slow, honest steps. That night, he unfolded the small note and set it on the piano, "Tell the truth." The paper had softened from being in his pocket so often. He smoothed it with his palm. He understood now that telling the truth was not just about music. It was about how he walked, how he listened, how he spoke, and how he forgave without forgetting. He had learned that a gentle start can make people lean in, that a quiet middle can carry a bright thank you, and that a peaceful ending can teach a room how to breathe. He closed his eyes and played the first two measures, then smiled and lifted his hands. The sound hung for a moment and then was gone, leaving the room full and calm. He stood, turned off the lamp, and felt very ordinary in the best way, a student with a piano, a friend who listens, a son who helps with dishes, a neighbor who waves. He had found a way to be seen without shouting. He had offered what he had, and it had been enough. He would keep practicing, keep listening, and keep telling the truth, one careful note at a time.